Hello there. Hi, Tanner. How you doing? Okay, so this is the live stream for everything that I watched in June 2022, which was a bit of a weird month for me. First of all, let me know if you can hear me, if the audio's coming through okay. It's always a little bit not quite as assured as doing my own recordings, but yeah, live streams are fun. All sorts of technical stuff can go wrong, and you never really know about it until things are happening. Hello, Ben. Welcome to the live stream here. So, I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope that everybody had at least I know it was a weird June, especially for those of us in the U.S., but just on a personal level, I hope that everybody's doing all right. So, let's go ahead and just get into it. So, for those of you that haven't or are watching this after the fact, after the live stream and so on, what I'll be doing is I'll be talking about everything that I watched in June of 2022. So that's movies, that's TV shows, that's horror, that's non-horror. So this is going to be everything. Hello, Kyle. Welcome to the live stream here. So, and if you want to chat, ask me any questions and so forth. I'll see if I can get to it without getting off track too much and, pulling that balancing act a little bit here. So let's get into the movies that I watched, since I have my Letterboxd screen up here, and I've been diligently tracking all the films that I've been watching, and a big portion of my year thus far has been ticking off boxes as far as watches that bucket list stuff, classic cinema that has gone under my radar. So that's going to be a fairly common theme throughout this. Hello, Jackie. Welcome. So to kick things off, on the 4th, I started the month out by watching The Founder. I love Michael Keaton, and the idea of this one kind of intrigued me. It was actually a Ray Kroc Elementary School in San Diego where I grew up, and Claremont. And so I knew the name, but had no idea really who it was outside of somebody associated with McDonald's. And the idea of seeing a movie with Michael Keaton, Nick Offerman, so on and so forth really appealed to me, and it was a pretty good movie. It didn't seem to really put that good of a shine on anybody, which is a good thing because it's not exactly a story that puts a lot of people in a good light. So it was nice to see something that I don't know exactly how honest it was, but it seemed to be more honest than not. Then I watched Room, not The Room, but Room, and very different movie than I was expecting. I didn't know exactly what to expect. I knew that it was kind of a one isolated, restricted setting kind of movie. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but suffice it to say it was that, but at the same time it wasn't. And I was also kind of expecting a fairly straight horror film, and it most certainly was not exactly that. Horrific elements, but way more of a difficult drama, showing darker sides of humanity than actual, paranormal or horror aspects or anything. Just wondering which Godfather 3 did you watch, brother? I haven't seen the code. I haven't seen any specific cuts, but yes, getting into that. Sorry, I'm going to bump my microphone just a little bit here. I did get into the Godfather series, which has eluded me. Believe it or not, I had not seen any of the Godfather movies in their entirety. I kind of caught bits and pieces of number 1 for a while, and I decided it was just time to bite the bullet, so to speak, and get this under my belt. So I finally watched the 3 movies, and what I can say is that this is perhaps a situation of too much hype. I enjoyed them. I mean, clearly my scores there, 3.5 stars, 4 stars, then down to 3 stars. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I just didn't see exactly the brilliance that everybody else did. I appreciated the films. I thought, there was a lot of cinematic merit to there and a lot to appreciate. But as far as, whether I enjoyed them, more than not, but still not as high as everybody else seems to be with this. On a personal, just absolute enjoyment level, mobster movies are not entirely my thing, but I think I actually enjoyed Goodfellas a fair bit more. Yeah. And Godfather 3 was a really, really not the best way to end the series. But then I wanted to watch a movie that I had heard had the most brilliant and beautiful cinematography, and I kind of wanted to see if that held true and if there was anything more beyond that. So I watched the 2007 movie, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. And holy God, what a movie. Seriously, what cinematography. It was just gorgeous. One of the most beautiful movies I've seen just visually. The storyline, pretty decent. I enjoy a good Western, not going to lie. I don't think there was anything too complex in this, but even so, it kind of dealt with things with a lot of subtlety and a lot of, it really shied away from having a lot of exposition and a lot of straightforward narrative, and really relied on a lot of subtle imagery and more character nuance. And beyond that, the cinematography alone is absolutely worth the watch. So very highly recommend that one. My God. Let's see. Also didn't watch them too much later. And at that point, I just kept thinking about the Family Guy thing. It insists upon itself. I kept thinking about that. And it's like, goddamn, it kind of does. And then I watched the 1976 classic Network for the first time. And again, that was a very different movie than I was expecting. I think I was kind of expecting a lot more of a quiet introspection piece of morality, akin to kind of 12 Angry Men. I definitely did not expect to get the biting satire that it was. And it was honestly kind of depressing, in all honesty, because the satire elements of it kind of get lost to time. And what was satirical back in 1976 is simply reality now, and recognizing that is depressing. The 2015 movie from Sean Mosrell, The Basement. This is one that I reviewed on behalf of my friend Sean, who's a great supporter of the channel. If you haven't checked his channel out yet, I do recommend it. He has some great insight. His channel is Nocturnal Horrors. And so this was kind of a tongue-in-cheek assignment that he put me to task with in making a ramped-up, angry critic review of his 2015 movie. Sons of the Desert. I am a big Laurel and Hardy fan, and some of my favorites are Flying Deuces, The Music Box, and I kept seeing Sons of the Desert come up, not just on Laurel and Hardy fans, but also just in like top 100 movies of all time. And I kept seeing this Laurel and Hardy picture in here. So I was like, okay, time to bite the bullet and see this one. And I got to say, compared to the movies that I actually grew up with and that I like The Music Box, Flying Deuces, this one was fairly underwhelming. I enjoyed it, but it was definitely not as funny as I expected, or, not quite as good as I expected. I don't, recommend anybody against it. If it's just, I don't know, if you haven't seen Laurel and Hardy, I don't know if this would be a good, entry point for anybody that I'd recommend. I watched a lot of movies this month. It's been a month. With the surgery, recovery, and all that, and distractions and so forth, and necessary emotional distractions from the world. I watched a lot of movies, and one of those distractions that I needed, a movie that I love to pieces, I've seen it countless times, and it's always good for the soul, is the 1991 Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life. An absolute peach of a film with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep about the afterlife, what happens when we die, and a very, very unique take on life and death and love and so on and so forth. I adore Defending Your Life. I think it's such a cute movie. Rip Torn is in it, and he's just an absolute delight. Great film. I do recommend it. A wonderful little comedy with a lot of heart. And then a comedy without a whole lot of heart was The Player from 1992. Again, this is another one that I just wasn't expecting what I got. And I don't know. So browsing through a lot of Letterboxd, one thing that I'll do is, trying to check off movies that I've seen so that I can rate them. One of the easier ways to go about that is to look up actors and look up their filmography, and oh, yep, did that one, not that one, yep, but that one, and just go down the list. And I've done this quite a bit with a lot of different actors, and I've noticed that a lot of actors all starred in the 1992 movie The Player. So, so I finally okay, maybe this is one that I should watch. And yes, it has a lot of stars in it, an ungodly number of stars in it. But I guess I was expecting a little bit more of, again, kind of a straightforward comedy romp, as opposed to the biting satire and introspective, scathing look at movie production and so forth that it actually turned out to be. This was, I believe, a Robert Altman movie. The Player, crew, yep, Robert Altman. And I didn't realize it was a Robert Altman movie until I started watching it, and then it became abundantly clear, oh yeah, this is one of his. And so that was an interesting revelation. I mean, I enjoy some of his movies, but they do have a very particular feel to them. I think one of my favorites, I mean, I do enjoy MASH, but I actually enjoy the show more than the film. I think my favorite of Robert Altman, and I know this is probably going to be a little bit controversial to Robert Altman fans, was A Prairie Home Companion. I just really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a great concept, and yeah. Anywho, moving on. Raw, 2016. This is another one that I had never seen before, and I kept hearing people talk about, and I finally decided it was time to bite the bullet and get this one watched, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. One thing that I heard from a lot of folks was that it was definitely not the type of movie that you should watch, on an empty stomach, or it requires a little bit of an iron tummy to make work. And Ben, if your dad loves the Prairie Home Companion radio show, I would recommend checking out the film. The film is kind of a what if in a movie taking place in the radio show's last broadcast. With Garrison Keillor and so forth, refusing to kind of acknowledge the last broadcast and just wanting to put on a good show, and has Woody Harrelson and John C. Reilly in it. Lindsay Lohan's in it, and it actually has a pretty good performance there. I do strongly recommend it. It was a good movie. Very interesting. A lot of heart. That's just putting it, it's a little bit too warm and fuzzy of a descriptor for what it was very mournful. But in that mournfulness was a fair bit of heart. But I enjoyed Raw, and I do recommend it. It is a movie that is... it'll turn your stomach. It had a lot in there that was a little bit difficult, but decent film. Then at the request of somebody, I watched Bad Bones, which was a little indie film that is actually available for free on YouTube. And if there's one thing that I love, it's people that put their entirety of their film for free on YouTube. I just think that's a class act. Anybody that does that is all right in my book. Then the 1984 movie Cloak and Dagger with Dabney Coleman and Henry Thomas. This has been a childhood favorite of mine. I love Cloak and Dagger since I was a little kid, and watching Henry Thomas run around in these actual dangerous situations that he kind of finds himself in. And ever since watching it as a little kid, it's just been a frequent watch for me. And I think it holds up, but the nature of it is dated. I mean, the idea of this is like, a secret government microchip embedded in an Atari cartridge that this kid finds, and then he's the target of an espionage, what have you. But, it just so happens that this kid loves the idea of, playing spies and so forth. So, he's going around an office building with his friend with a toy gun, going around corners and pretending to shoot and so forth. And the gun looks realistic. And I'm like, ooh, that was very 80s, wasn't it? Let's see. Leave No Trace, 2022. Right. I'm like, what the hell was that movie? Leave No Trace was a documentary about the Boy Scouts of America and the phrasing situations with YouTube, with the allegations surrounding a lot of their abuse factors and so forth. over the years, and the cover-ups and the methodology as a nonprofit organization that they went through, and a lot of firsthand accounts and so on. Difficult documentary. I do kind of wish that it tackled a bit more of the fundamentals. It kind of seemed like it strayed off course a few times. I think it could have been a little bit more impactful than it actually turned out to be, but even so, it was important subject matter, and it's an important subject matter that's near and dear to my heart. I grew up in the Boy Scouts and made it, just that close to Eagle before I just decided it wasn't for me anymore. And, I mean, I've seen a lot of the good, the bad, and the ugly about the BSA, and my opinion of them has changed significantly over time, over the course of my life. And it was interesting to see a documentary that really kind of tackled some difficult subject matter openly and honestly. Mad God, the 2021 movie from, I think, Phil Tippett. I think that was the name. It's been a little while since my review, so the names kind of elude me after a little bit here. But this was available on Shudder. This is a movie that took 30 years to make. And it's a combination of stop motion, some live action, a lot of different kind of mediums and special effects and so forth went into making this animated film. But just an absolute visual spectacular that's somewhat light on storyline narrative, but that really isn't the point. The point is that it is a visual spectacle, and I cannot recommend it enough as that. It's difficult. It'll turn your stomach. It is gorgeous to behold at the same time. The 1922 Nosferatu. This was in preparation for watching the movie The Shadow of the Vampire. I wanted to kind of get, The Shadow of the Vampire, which my review just came out, was about the presupposition that Max Schreck, who played Count Orlok in the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, was himself a vampire. So it was kind of a satirical, what-if fictional account of the production of that silent film, starring Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich. And I kind of wanted to have more of a baseline knowledge base for Nosferatu itself before watching a fictionalized account of its production. So that's what that was. That's why I watched that. Then Jennifer's Body. This was part of a watch party with Nightmare Maven's channel. I'm a big fan and subscriber and supporter of Nightmare Maven. Vicky is just an absolute wonderful, bright soul. And I suggested I made the suggestion of watching Jennifer's Body since I hadn't seen it before. And as soon as everybody found out that I hadn't seen it yet, all of a sudden it became like priority number one of the watch party picks. So I was happy to give that a watch, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm glad that I finally watched it. How to Make a Monster. 2001's How to Make a Monster. Thank you, Jackie. That was something. Clea Duvall, you are welcome. Jennifer's Body is pretty cool. Kind of wish it was sleazier though. What are you gonna do? How to Make a Monster was cheesy 2000s fun. And then speaking of cheesy, 1980s fun was The Monster Club. That was a request that was put out by by our newest rotted requester, who the name is eluding me and I don't want to get it wrong. I'd rather just say new rotted requester. I was happy to watch that. Dr. Sleep was a request that was put out by Catherine Gordon, and that was kind of following up the previous month's request of the miniseries of The Shining. So got Dr. Sleep out of the way as far as the review goes, which I was happy to do. I love that movie. Then we get into a lot of watches. So as part of the Rotted Reviews Patreon, if you're not as a member, I recommend it. But if you're not, we have at least 2 watch parties a month. And last month, I decided to kind of actually pull that back and only do one watch party, but it was a 24-hour movie marathon. And so these movies are part of the 24-hour movie marathon that we all watched together. It was just a heap of fun. I love doing those. It's almost like assembling a mixtape of films that I love for the people that support me. So I was happy to do that. I've been doing movie marathons at least one a year during Halloween time for over 10 years now, usually for family and friends, but it's kind of drifted into now for kind of subscribers and, patrons and so forth to do it remotely over Discord. And yeah, still happy to do that. So the Halloween one is an annual marathon, but then I have a couple more thematic different ones tucked under my belt that I don't like to do all the time. One of which is what we did here, which was called the Shits and Giggles Marathon, where we alternated between horror and comedy, and we just kind of went back and forth between the two. And another one that I do, and I really don't do it very often, is what I call the Fucked Up-a-thon. And that's strictly taking movies that aren't necessarily horror, but are difficult watches. Things like Antichrist and Men Under the Sun. Movies like that. Difficult movies. And I don't like to do that one very often because it is emotionally taxing. But we did Shits and Giggles, and it started with Hereditary. Then we went to Young Frankenstein, The Dark and the Wicked, Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. I gotta say, I was so happy at everybody's response with this one. I love this movie. It's so stupid, but it's so much fun. And I've had a hard time getting anybody to pull the trigger on it. I myself didn't want to pull the trigger on it. I kept seeing the poster. When I finally watched it, I regretted not having watched it sooner. And I just loved this movie. So I was really excited to show it to people. And I was super happy that people seemed to fairly universally enjoy it as much as I did. So yeah, I was happy that we to show Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. If you haven't seen it, it's just stupid fun. Patton Oswalt's in it. Just great movie. Then Relic, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which is probably one of the more solid classics, but still not my favorite Abbott and Costello movie. And I think that title would have to go to Abbott and Costello in Hold That Ghost. For me, that was that's one that I just enjoy the most. I thought the comedy in it was better. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, absolutely nothing wrong with it. I loved it. But I think that it maybe relied a little bit too heavily on the monster factor carrying the film. I just felt like the comedy was better in some of their other movies. Jacob's Ladder. I'm glad that Tanner likes this as much as he did. I enjoyed Jacob's Ladder so much. One of the best horror movies I of all time for me. I was actually asked fairly recently about my top 10 horror movies, and it's not that I hate that. It's just that my answer will always waffle, but Jacob's Ladder actually made it onto that list. Ask me again next week, it probably won't, but the week after it probably will. That's just the nature of me trying to come up with top 10 lists. Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. This was kind of one of those holdbacks from movies that scared me as a kid, so kind of follows through with films that I love. And the more I watch it, unfortunately, the less it holds up. So I think I'm going to be recommending it slightly less, but I will maintain, and I will this is going to be a little bit of a stubborn, boots or heels in the ground on this one, but I do maintain that it gets shit on too much. I do think that it deserves more praise than it gets, but I am also kind of honestly evaluating whether it deserves quite as much praise as I've given it in the past. Then the 2020 A Ghost Waits. This one was kind of shown in the 24-hour lineup right about the time that everybody was dropping off and falling asleep. So unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people caught that one, and this was one that I really did want to showcase a bit more. But c'est la vie. I do recommend it. I thought it was a charming, cute little micro-budget indie romantic horror movie. Just had a lot of heart, but unfortunately, I do have to acknowledge, anytime I bring this up, I do have to acknowledge that The Ghost Waits does have a fairly problematic ending. Just because if I don't mention that, I get a lot of holy hell from the people that did watch it. And like, why didn't you mention the ending? I'm like, yeah, I know. The Ritual. I've seen this countless times, and I'm probably going to stop including it on lists just because I'm starting to get a little oversaturated with it. but I did enjoy it. Some of the horror elements in the first half were just spot on for me, and some of the monster elements in the second half, the creature design especially, loved it. Murder Party, fun little, sharp dialogue, silly horror movie. Then We Need to Do Something, which I've already covered in a review. But yeah, that was the one that I don't think it was an amazing movie, but it was one of those ones that I was expecting nothing out of it. And I was extremely pleasantly surprised by what I actually found. So this kind of turned into one of those hidden gems of 2021. Donald Duck and the Gorilla, classic. And also 3 minutes long, and I needed to pad a little bit of time. The Innkeepers, I think this one is kind of starting to... I enjoy it, and I still maintain that I enjoy it, but I think it's losing a little bit of its luster for me, and I need to go back and revisit the other Ty West movie, not X, Devil, House of the Devil. I need to revisit that because I think that, I got a fly in here. I think that may wind up being something that needs to be higher up on my radar. Then American Werewolf in Paris, or in London, and that was part of my watch party with Spooky Astronauts. I'm a member of her channel in Discord and Patreon, and I highly recommend that. A great community, fun watch parties, and this was no exception. So yeah, I was happy to watch it there. A lot of people's first time watching it, and what a treat it was to kind of see the movie through their eyes for the first time. Then Prometheus, the Fallen Angel, Olaf Ittenbach, director. I want to say that's the name. German underground gore director, and this was the recommendation that was put out by Ben, and happy to do a review of that. Then, based on a recommendation from WTL, I watched Slashback, which was kind of an Inuit, Northern Canada, not exactly like iteration of The Thing, but heavily inspired by it. And I would have to say the horror elements of it worked really well. The principal characters in this movie were kind of preteen, young girls, and some of the interactions that kind of went on between them were a little bit cringe. But at the same time, I have to kind of acknowledge, just going back, complete honesty, how much of the dialogue that we had when we were preteens wasn't cringe. So, it was honestly a little bit, Olaf Ittenbach, honestly a little bit honest in that regard. But decent movie, and I think that the thing that really impressed me with that was, again, creature design. Some of the stuff that was coming out there, it was kind of... that idea of mimicking humans and mimicking animals, but getting it, stupid fly, only getting it like 75% correct and 25% not correct, with odd movement and odd, facial distortions and so forth, was actually pretty impressive. I liked Slashback. And then going completely away from horror was Jerry and Marge Go Large. I saw the advertisements for this one, and it has Bryan Cranston and Annette Bening in it. And it was very uncomplicated fluff, but enjoyable uncomplicated fluff. It was about, based on a true story about a guy that's retired and finds a loophole, or almost not a cheat. It was actually within the parameters of, terms of service and legal what have yous of his state lottery. And he found the mathematical error in there that allowed him to guarantee wins. And it was a little bit fluff, but it was still quite nice. He brings his wife in on it, and she's really supportive of the idea, and they kind of rekindle some of their marriage by going on this little adventure together, and they start a corporation, and they actually bring in shareholders from their neighbors and so forth, and they revitalize the town by bringing their neighbors in on it as opposed to just hoarding the wealth and being jerks about things. Cute movie. I enjoyed it. And then Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, because why not? I really loved Beavis and Butthead Do America, and I would say that this kind of winds up definitely not as good as that, but still enjoyable. If you like Beavis and Butthead, you're going to like this. It's not Beavis and Butthead Do America, I think, even transcended, even if you weren't a Beavis and Butthead fan, it was a solid movie. I do remember that Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up. It was a great film. Blindsiding almost everybody. It was a great film. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, not quite so much. But if you are a fan, you'll enjoy it. So that's the movies that I watched. Let's go ahead and get into the TV shows. All right, I'm going to bring this over. How we doing so far? So, finished up with season 3 of Barry. Very nice, Tanner. Very nice. That was a distraction. Anyway, finished off with season 3 of Barry, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I love Barry, and season 3 was no exception. Definitely kind of went darker, went with a different feel, and still loved it. Last week tonight, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm burning out on the Star Wars stuff. I really enjoyed The Mandalorian when it came out, and I'm getting oversaturated, I got to admit. I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi was okay. I mean, it was okay. Some really good elements, but overall... No, I recognize the quote. It was still a distraction. Oh, God, I'm so happy that Only Murders in the Building is back. Oh, I love this show so much. Some great mystery in this. Some great detective stuff, some great mystery unfolding. I love, the double bluffs and the way it really keeps the audience on its toes just when you think it... Good night, Rob. Good to see you here. But, I love this. The only thing is, why couldn't we have Sting back, and why do we have to have Amy Schumer in the show? At least, she's not extremely prominent so far, so. But even so, I was so happy to see this back as soon as I saw her face show up on screen. I'm like, oh, why? Why Amy Schumer? Strange New Worlds has continued being excellent, which I'm very happy about. I would have to say that the episode previous to the latest one was a little bit of what the hell is going on here, but it recovered nicely with the last episode, and I'm looking forward to more of it. Stranger Things 4. I am not going to talk about this of the last 2 episodes that just got released today, just to keep it completely spoiler-free. I'm actually not even going to spoil anything. I enjoyed it. I've been really digging season 4. And I actually did finish watching the last 2 episodes just a couple hours ago with Jenny. And wow. That's all I'll say is wow. This has been one hell of a season. I'm looking forward to season 5 when we get it in, 6-7 years' time. Taskmaster finishing up. Excellent UK comedy show. The Boys continuing on. This has really broken a lot of boundaries. I honestly think that as far as TV shows go, The Boys probably has some of the best gore ever. And it's not even a horror show. But man, some of the gore in that show is great. It continually shocks me. And that's not easy. There was one portion of the new season from episode 1 that I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, and then the new one of the new episodes of Hero-gasm. Just a lot of stuff in there. The Orville is back. I don't know if anybody's ever done a live stream. This is one of the weirdest things, but it happens fairly regularly for me. If I kick on the camera, all of a sudden my nose gets just super itchy. Anyway, the Seth MacFarlane's The Orville is back and is as good as ever. I kind of noticed that when the show first started, it was kind of balancing, like, based on what you saw from the trailer and also kind of from the first episode, it was like 50-50 comedy and sci-fi. And as the show went on, it started kind of bringing that balance a little bit out of skew and going more sci-fi and less humor, which I think was good. I mean, it actually proved to be, in a time where we didn't have any good Star Trek shows, it was the best Star Trek show on TV, even though it wasn't Star Trek. It was actually proving to be really quality sci-fi, and it was refreshing to see that. And this new season has started up, and now I think we're down to like 10% humor, if that, maybe 5. And but it's still just continuing to be better and better. And I'm just flabbergasted. I feel like my cup runneth over. Not only are we actually having a good Star Trek show again with Strange New Worlds, but we have The Orville, and it's just fantastic sci-fi TV. I mean, it tackles topics that Star Trek wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, which is interesting because Star Trek used to be the show that would touch on topics under the under the sci-fi umbrella that no other show would touch. It would tackle topics like racism and so forth, and it would do it openly and honestly, using the future and using aliens and so forth as a vehicle to kind of get around a lot of censorship and social, outrage. And now it kind of feels like, although Star Trek is still proven to be quality sci-fi, that dissection of existing, current, difficult social topics, The Orville is taking the mantle with that and running with it. And I've been loving the hell out of it. New season of The Umbrella Academy. I enjoyed it. I still think that this probably wasn't quite as good as season 1 or 2. But I did enjoy it. I just think that, I don't know, I think that they could have done a little bit more with it. I think it kind of... One particular character, Allison, I was very not happy with the arcs that they put her through, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. A little disappointing, though. And then Top Gear. I love Top Gear. I've been a fan of Top Gear. I think we got revived in 2008, I think. And I don't know, I've been a fan of it since, I would say, 2010. Yeah. And when arcs to the point where I stopped watching it. Yeah. I mean, I would say that it's worth continuing on, but still upset with that arc. But I was afraid of where Top Gear was heading after Clarkson and crew got kicked off the show or left, or however you want to define it. And a lot of my fears were well-founded in how much it struggled to get back on its feet with changing through hosts and formats and so on. But I finally feel like with the current host that they have with McGinnis and crew, that it's not back. It's just different. But on a quality level, I would say that it's as good as it's ever been, and I'm really enjoying it. So it's a good petrolhead show with humor, and I love Top Gear so much. I'm still waiting for a Top Gear America or a Top Gear USA iteration that doesn't suck, but that's another thing that they've continually tried over and over, different hosts, different formats. And I think one of the big problems with that is with American TV, you're always beholden to your sponsorships. So I can't count. I mean, if the show is sponsored by Ford or runs Ford commercials or is put out through Amazon Prime, which may have, deals through Ford or, whatever. You get my point. I can't count on them honestly evaluating the new Ford Fiesta or Ford F-150. Whereas through the BBC, stupid fly. They'll rail on them. They're very honest about their evaluations of vehicles, and I do enjoy that. And I think that's going to bring us right around the corner back to Barry. So that's about it. That's everything that I watched in June. I do appreciate you joining me here. And I think that should about wrap this up. Unless anybody has any questions for me. It looks like 4 people are watching. Floor is open to you 4 if you want to ask me anything. Otherwise, I will go. I'm just keeping an eye on the chat here. I'll say otherwise, I wish you a very pleasant evening and a great weekend coming up here. So thank you very much for joining me and watching and checking out what I watched in June. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you again. Take care of yourselves, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.